dangerous thinking with humor, honesty, and absolutely no patience for predator logic. Today, we're unpacking a disturbing argument I saw floating around online, and I need you to buckle up because this one is foul. We're talking about grown ass people trying to argue that there's a difference between sexually abusing a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old. And I'm here to tell you why that argument is not just raggedy, it's dangerous, it's predatory, and it needs to be dragged into the light and set on fire. Let's go. So, here's what we're dealing with. There's been this circulating conversation, whether it's a clip, a comment, or some hot take from someone who clearly missed the memo on how to be a decent human being, where someone argued that there's a distinction, a meaningful distinction between an adult sexually engaging with a 5-year-old child versus a 15-year-old teenager. The implication that one is somehow less bad than the other. And I need y'all to understand something right now. I'm not here to debate any specific person. I don't care who said it, where they said it, or what their excuse was. I'm talking about the idea itself. This raggedy, predator adjacent logic that tries to create a hierarchy of child abuse. Because here's the thing, a child is a child is a child, and any grown adult trying to split hairs about which age of child is more acceptable to violate, that's not a conversation. That's a confession. Let me break down exactly why this logic is so goddamn dangerous. First of all, both are minors. Both a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old are legally, developmentally, and morally children. The law doesn't say, well, teenagers are basically adults. The law says children cannot consent. Period. End of story. Second, both cannot consent. I don't care if a 15-year-old looks older or acted mature or whatever other excuse predators and their defenders want to trot out. A child does not have the emotional, psychological, or legal capacity to consent to a sexual relationship with an adult. And you know what we call it when someone engages sexually with someone who cannot consent? We call it rape. We call it abuse. Third, comparing them is a tactic. This is literally a grooming predator defense strategy. It's a way to minimize harm. It's a way to say, well, at least it wasn't that bad, as if there's a version of child sexual abuse that's acceptable. There isn't. When you start ranking children by how bad it is to abuse them, you're not making a moral argument. You're making an excuse. You're creating a loophole. You're saying maybe this one is okay. And I'm sorry, any child is that bad. There is no version of this that isn't horrific. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. It's not that bad. And that's exactly how predators operate. They minimize, they compare, they create false distinctions. Oh, she was mature for her age. Oh, he knew what he was doing. Oh, it's not like she was a baby. No, shut that down. A 15-year-old is still a child. A 15-year-old is still in high school. A 15-year-old is still developing, still learning, still figuring out who they are. And a grown adult who looks at a 15-year-old and sees a sexual opportunity, that's a predator. I don't care how you dress it up. Here's some basic biology and psychology for the folks who want to pretend teenagers are basically adults. The human brain doesn't finish developing until around age 25. That's the prefrontal cortex. That part responsible for decision making, impulse control, understanding consequences, and recognizing manipulation. Teenagers are literally still growing. Their brains are still learning how to process risk, set boundaries, and recognize when someone is taking advantage of them. And you know what adults have? Fully developed brains. Adults have life experience. Adults understand power dynamics. Adults know exactly what they're doing when they pursue someone significantly younger. That's not a relationship. That's not love. That's not even attraction in any healthy sense. That's an abuse of power. And here's the thing about power. When you're a kid, you don't always see it. You don't always recognize that the adult in the situation has all the control. You might think you're making your own choices, but when someone older, more experienced, and more powerful is steering those choices, you're being manipulated. So, no, a 15-year-old is not old enough to know better. A 15-year-old is old enough to be protected better. Okay, now let me get personal for a second, because as a mother, this argument made my skin crawl. I have kids, and when I think about the idea of someone, anyone, trying to justify why it's less bad to harm a teenager versus a small child, I want to lose my mind. Because here's what I know. Kids are kids. At 14, at 15, at 16, they're still children. They're still figuring out how they are, who they are. They're still asking me for advice, still making mistakes, still learning how the world works. They're not adults. They're not ready to navigate a sexual or romantic relationship with someone who has decades of life experience on them. And my child at 5 is a baby, innocent, trusting, completely dependent on adults to protect them. So when someone tries to argue that there's a difference, that one is somehow worse than the other, what I hear is one of these violations is more forgivable. And I'm here to tell you, neither is forgivable. I don't care how tall a teenager is. I don't care how they dress. I don't care if they flirted first or seemed interested. Grown is a mindset, not a height. And if you're a grown adult, it is your responsibility to recognize that a child, yes, a teenager is still a child, cannot consent to you. If you're a parent and you're hearing this, I want you to imagine your own kid. Imagine them at 15. Now imagine some 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old trying to justify why pursuing your child sexually is not that bad. You'd lose your mind. You'd call the police. You'd protect your baby. So why the hell are we letting people make these arguments in public and not dragging them for it? Now, let's talk about why people even try to defend this kind of logic, because it's not accidental, it's not a mistake, it's intentional. This argument serves a purpose. It protects predators. It creates space for abusers to operate. It shifts blame onto victims. It makes us question whether abuse even happened or whether it was really that bad. And who benefits from that? Predators. This is rooted in misogyny. The idea that girls, especially teenage girls, are fast, promiscuous, or asking for it. The idea that boys want it anyway, so it doesn't count as harm. This is rooted in victim blaming. The idea that the child should have known better, should have said no, should have avoided the situation. This is rooted in the sexualization of teenagers. The disgusting cultural habit of treating teenage girls like they're grown women, like they're fair game, like their bodies exist for adult consumption. And here's the kicker: it's always the folks who shouldn't even be near a PTA meeting who say this mess. The ones defending it, the ones trying to argue semantics, the ones saying, well, technically, yeah, those are the ones we need to be watching. Because good people don't need to defend predators. Good people don't need to create loopholes for abuse. And let's talk about the cultural piece for a second. Because this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Our society has a nasty habit of infantilizing men while hypersexualizing girls, especially black and brown girls. We act like grown men are helpless, like they can't help themselves, like they're just victims of temptation. Meanwhile, we treat teenage girls like they're seductresses, like they're responsible for managing adult men's behavior. That's backwards. That's dangerous. And that's exactly how predators hide. They use these narratives, they point to what the girl was wearing, they say she looked older, they say she wanted it. They create a story where the child is responsible for the adult's actions. And you know what happens? Victims don't speak up because they've been told they're to blame, because the adults around them are too busy arguing about which version of abuse is less serious instead of protecting them. Let me be crystal clear: there is no version of childhood where an adult belongs sexually. None. Not at 5, not at 15, not at 17, and 364 days. If you're an adult and you're pursuing, engaging with, or defending sexual contact with a minor, you're the problem. So here's my call out, plain and simple. If you are defending grown adults messing with minors, you are the problem. Period. If you are out here trying to create a spectrum of acceptable child abuse, you are the problem. If you are making excuses, splitting hairs, or playing devil's advocate for predators, you are the problem. There is no debate here. There is no, well, actually, there is no room for nuance when it comes to protecting children. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. Sit in that discomfort. Ask yourself why you felt the need to defend it in the first place. All right, y'all. That's it for this episode of Raggedy Ass Bitch TV. I will see you in the next one. But until then, remember, protect kids. Drag predators. And don't let the raggedy slip through your front door. I'm out.